what really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Good afternoon. It is Thursday, July 16th, 2020. Sure happy it's Thursday? Sure happy it's Thursday? Oh yeah, sure happy it's Thursday. This is Third Dave. I'm filling in for Mike. He and Claire are off into the Northeast visiting family. And with me today is my co-host, Steve, my other co-host, Steve. Yeah, I've been wanting to say that. I got Steve Stars with me, and we got off the beaten path, Steve Elkins, who is a regular host here on RBN. He's got a show 7 p.m. on Central Time on Sundays, 8 p.m. Eastern Time for those of you that are in Florida. And Steve Stars and I do a show on KHNC 1360 out there in Colorado a couple days a week called Open Forum. And that's 11 a.m. Mountain Time, both Monday and Tuesday. So let's go to Steve Stars first, and we'll try to do that. Steve, how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing good, and I'm glad to be back with you, but more glad than I am to be back with you, I am glad that Steve Elkins is back with us, and he has got a tale, and he's got a lot of stuff. You know, he's got a medical background, and he's been through the ringer lately, and he's going to be talking about his episode here, and I just want to let him say all that he wants to say. It's good to have Steve Elkins back. Steve, welcome back, and I'm glad you're going to be here and with us again after what you've been through.
Well, I appreciate being back. I actually appreciate both you guys covering for me where I was gone, and Lark in Texas helping out. Yeah, it was quite the ordeal. It probably wouldn't have been, but with the whole COVID pandemic, my kidney stone issue was quite the ordeal. Having to jump through a lot of hoops to get in to actually be seen by a doctor. And then at some point to say you can't pass a stone, it's much too big. You had several stones. Tried everything in the world. And I want to thank all those listeners who called in to John's show to give me information about how to bust the stones up, or emails and kindness and all those nice things. I really appreciate that. We have quite the family here at RBN, and I appreciate all of you out there who really cared that much to chime in.
Well, you got
absolutely.
through it.
Well, it's good to have you back.
Yeah, normally in a situation like this, you can get in and be seen within a week, and they'll say, okay, we got to do this or that. With COVID, it shut everything down. The hospitals are so backed up right now, which had me thinking, people say, well, what's essential and what's not essential for a hospital? And kidney stones, if you've ever had them, they are serious. They are a lot of pain involved here. It upsets a lot of the imbalance on many different systems here. It was amazing, and I couldn't be seen. I could not be seen. Finally got in. It took me 5 weeks, people, to get in there to actually have the intervention of surgery where they went in and blasted the stone through a cystoscope and placed a renal stent in my left ureter. It's amazing. And the hoops I had to jump through, talking about the COVID testing. I had to have COVID testing prior to going in. And a red flag came up to me when I saw the literature, the sheet I actually had to hand to the COVID tester. And that was quite the ordeal. I actually had a blowout in the parking lot with the staff there. I don't know if you guys ever seen the movie Porky's? Remember back in the 80s, Porky's, the movie? Okay. Do you remember Beulah Ballbreaker? Do you remember this woman, the little fat woman with the little stick legs? Do you remember her?
Yeah.
Okay. It had a mole on it. That was the woman. This was the woman who was carrying around the clipboard, and she was barking orders at me, and you stand back there. And I think I'd had enough of the nonsense of people not thinking. And I'd already answered the questionnaire about who my contacts have been. Did I travel outside the country? Do I have a cough, a sneeze, anything else that might say I have COVID-19? And I said for the 10th time, no. And I started screaming this at her. I had quite an audience there. I thought at some point in time that law enforcement would be called. We've seen these situations at Costco and many different places, Walmart, where people are saying, I'm not putting the mask on. I'm done with this nonsense. And I kind of reached my plateau of following the stupidity. I am a guy who thinks. I'm a thinker. I'm a critical care ICU nurse, and working ER also. So I think I look outside the box, and what does not make sense, does not pass the smell test, the logic test, I don't follow. And I'm not very good at, being the sheeple. I'm not going to be that. That's not me. Which is great to be on RBN, because this is the platform where I should be to talk about what's right and what's wrong and the truth. So I had taken the COVID-19 testing, and it hadn't come back. They told me it would be back in 12 to 24 hours. I'm in pre-op, getting prepped, my IVs, everything ready to go. And they don't know how they're going to have to dress in the OR for my procedure, because if I come back COVID positive, they're going to have to gown up, and I kid you not, major gown up to take care of me and do the procedure. Well, about 2 hours before my procedure, I wasn't waiting for a long time. They came back and said, finally came back, you are negative. But prior to that, my anesthesiologist and my physician both came to the bedside to talk to me about the procedure, what was going to happen. And they were both wearing major gowns, a face shield. They had the paint respirator, the kind you use when you paint a car, with both vents on either side, left and right. And they had N95 masks, one over each vent, plus the face shield, plus the gowns. And they said, we were so happy to find that you were negative, because we can take off much of this stuff, and we're going to, basically overheat in the OR with this stuff. We hope you come back negative. We came back negative. Procedure was done. Everything turned out pretty well. But that was my ordeal. This was something that 5 weeks I had to put up with, which had me wondering, with people who are on dialysis and other cardiac problems, how many people were in my situation who actually should have been seen, could not be seen, and maybe who are no longer here today, because their situations got much, much worse.
I know for a fact that there are some, because a friend here locally, Tom, God rest his soul, wasn't able to go to the doctor because of this very thing, and as a result, he didn't get the care he needed, and he passed away. So we are losing people, and this interesting experience that you had really should, really resonate with people, because if these mandates for these cloth face coverings were effective at shielding you from this COVID-19, why on earth did they go to such extremes with basically hazmat suits, masks on top of masks, to protect themselves from this stuff? Well, that's because these fabric face coverings don't do anything. Even the N95 masks have a pore size of about 300 nanometers, and this virus is somewhere between 50 and 200 nanometers, depending on who you ask. It's a rather large RNA molecule. So that's still going to go through the N95 mask. It will slow down a little bit. But these face coverings that they're mandating, these fabric face coverings, like these bandanas, are 2,000 times more porous. They do absolutely nothing. The analogy has been floated that's like trying to protect yourself against a mosquito swarm with a chain link fence.
Yeah. Well, the bandana masks, I did some research on that. They actually give you about close to 5%, a little over 4.5%, close to 5%, we'll round it off, a protection of particulate. That's nothing. So 5% protection, 95% unprotected. The N95 mask supposedly... Yeah, the N95 mask is supposed to filter out about 95% of the particulate, and your surgical mask is only about 65%, 67%. Yeah, these people, what's interesting is that now the hospitals are now pushing some departments, and my wife came home and said, not only does she have to wear the stupid mask here, you can't opt out of this. They're threatening people with their jobs on this. This is serious stuff we need to talk about. But not only are you wearing the N95 mask, but now some people are actually told to wear a face shield over your face. So you think about, you're not allowed to exhale the CO2, and now you've got a shield in front of your mouth here. So you know what? You're really taking in far more CO2 than you were before. Anybody understands a high CO2 level gets you a little malaise, a little sleepy, a little tired. And of course, your body's reaction is to take the mask off, get some fresh air, start blowing off CO2, increase your respirations. And I think a lot of people are talking about they're getting headaches now from wearing the masks because they're actually increasing their CO2 levels, which is causing the problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, if I was to have to go out and do this whole mask thing, I would do the scuba mask and I would have a scuba tank and I would be breathing oxygen off of that, not dealing with the CO2. Okay. Now, I was going to wait until the second hour to open the phone lines, but we have a question for you, Steve Elkins, from Joe in Nome. So, Joe, go with your question for Steve. Joe, are you there?
Steve.
Go ahead, Joe.
Hello. Yeah, Steve. I've been wondering for a long time, and since you're a doctor.
No, not a doctor. Not a doctor. Let me correct you already. ICU and ER, not a doctor.
Okay, I'm sorry. My mistake. But my burning question for you is, are you the same Steve Elkins that discovered a lost city down in Honduras?
Shh, you're not supposed to tell anybody that. No, that's not me. Not me. Not me.
Okay. Well, yeah. I think he was a doctor, and they discovered some really bizarre parasite down there. But let's hope it never gets here, okay?
Yeah. Right.
Thanks a lot. Let you go.
Yeah.
Right,
he called me doctor, and I said, well, I'm an ICU nurse, but I have played a doctor on TV before, just once.
There you go. And you might have stayed in a Holiday Inn Express at some point. So
there you go.
Can also put that, notch in your belt too. Yes, indeed. All right. Well, we're back on target with what we've been talking about. And if you do discover some hidden city and stuff like that, especially if there's treasure, don't be bogarting the treasure there, Steve.
Well, I'm still down here in Florida looking for the Fountain of Youth. Ponce de Leon was down here. He couldn't find it. Well, I think it's nearby. I'm still searching.
I'll let you know. TED Talk.
Yeah. Well, if you do find that, you definitely let us know, because we could certainly use that. Well, this whole COVID thing has really got people just absolutely freaking out, and these tests are dubious at best, because we're hearing about all these false positives on here. We were talking about the goats, the papayas, testing positive. And now we've also heard of people just sending the test right back, not having been used, and they come back positive. And this could certainly explain some of the hot spots, like what we were talking about, before the show. And obviously, the tests are not exactly equal. We have a couple friends that are recovering from all of this nonsense and all that. And on their radio show this morning, Joe was talking about, the fact that, they wouldn't test him for the COVID again to see that he was negative. Say, well, you're probably not, contagious anymore. We're going to quarantine you a little bit more. So it's like, well, are you going to test me? He said, no, we're not going to test you again, because you're going to test positive for a good long while after this stuff. So again, it really kind of makes you wonder about these tests. And we've also heard that they will test positive if you've had a flu shot. Okay, anybody that's had a flu shot is going to be testing positive for that. And if this is the antibody test, basically anybody that's had a cold or flu in the last 10 years can potentially test positive for this. And they've been ramping up very aggressively the number of tests they're trying to do. We're testing. We're not solving the problem. We're just testing. And we're having these big numbers come back. Well, yeah, of course, you're more aggressively testing, even if you're using the same tests. And it was, having the same results, you would have more cases being reported. And we know that a majority of the people that get this, are asymptomatic. So a lot of people don't even know that they've been exposed to this stuff. So we really don't know. There's too many variables in there. And it would almost be like just rolling dice and say, okay, you're infected, you're not infected, you're infected, you're not infected, because there really is no consistency to any of it. And this is extremely dangerous to be moving forward with this, because everybody is overreacting about this. And
it's emotional. They've played the fear card very well, you guys. They've played the fear card very well. And unfortunately, people in fear usually don't think logically. In fear, they just react. And so, the booga booga, we've been telling you, they've been telling you that this is a real thing. It's going to, they've come down to basically the mainstream media has sold this so well, and Fauci has sold this so well to say to the mainstream media and to tell everybody that a positive coronavirus test equals an ICU admission, it will put you on a ventilator, you'll have diarrhea, and then you will die. That's pretty much what a CV positive test is, and most people are thinking about. Unfortunately, that's not the situation here. This was a virus, a respiratory virus, an upper respiratory virus that would take quite a few elderly, because people in the nursing homes and the assisted living facilities, they're there for a reason. They're not there just, it's not leisure fun time there. They're there because they have underlying health problems or comorbidities. Now, that's what we should have been talking about. What they should have done from the very beginning, of course, not allow people coming into the country from hotspots, simply turn them around, send them back, not let them get off a plane and exit another plane and take off all through the country. They should have locked down, stopped that from the very beginning. But what they should have done is said, you know what, anybody who's in a nursing home is there for a reason. We should have probably quarantined the assisted living facilities and the nursing homes. We should not lock down the entire nation here and destroy the economy. But that's actually what they wanted to do. This was a pandemic, plandemic, going back to even 2017 when Anthony Fauci talked about there would be a pandemic in the first term of Donald Trump's administration. Wow, how did you know that? How did Fauci know there was going to be a pandemic in Donald Trump's first year? How did he know that?
He had planned it.
Well, they had it planned. Go back to Event 201 and everything else. Go back to the fact that the coronavirus has patents on it from go back to 2006. They've known about this for a while. They've had this plan. They wanted to do this with the When Pigs Fly flu in 2009, but they didn't get traction on it. So they try again. And this time, for whatever overreaction happened in China, everybody just kind of, followed right along with that. Well, they overreacted and locked everything down. We must have to do it too. Yay. Now we're all like China.
Yeah, that was the plan.
Ridiculous.
The second wave was, this is my theory on the second wave. First of all, the numbers, let's be clear about this. It's the fact here. Physicians I've talked to, many people I've talked to, were basically told, if you think it might be, just put it on the death certificate. It's a COVID death. I actually know somebody who actually died of COVID, but and a nurse. She was about my age. She just died a couple of days ago. But she actually had some serious underlying health problems, which does not surprise me that her respiratory could not handle this, and she passed away. But we know they've been padding the test. I theorize what actually happened here with these hot spots around the country, Texas, California, and Florida's. Like I said, the second wave was about boosting those numbers up because they weren't really there. They had to get lax. They had to find ways to add more to the death toll. And they also were sending, my theory on this, I'm pretty solid on this one, that they were sending tainted already test kits to these hot areas. Of course, anybody who takes a test from that test kit in the hot spot, is now a hot spot because you have a positive test. This is probably why my hospital would not, where I have my procedure, would not accept any kind of testing other than their own testing site, because there's a lot of fraud going on here with tainted test kits.
Right. Good idea.
Yep.
I'm glad you missed that.
Test kits. What happens when somebody gets tested with one of those tainted test kits? Is it possible for them to become infected with COVID-19 as a result of a tainted test?
Well, I don't think that. I'm going back to what you said earlier about people sending in 10 samples. There was something a couple of weeks ago I got a notice on. A bunch of nurses said something doesn't smell right here. This isn't right. We're getting far too many positives. This can't be. And so they actually did their own little test. They took the 10 different samples, had actually not even done anything, testing on anybody. They simply pulled it, the swab, put it back in the medium there, sealed it, put on a fake name. They made logs of it, sent it in, and they came back positive. How could that possibly be? That could only be because it was a tainted test kit from the very beginning. And you're right. If they actually did put that in your nostril, maybe they could give you actually the COVID.
Yep, they're good. They definitely need more cases to be able to really lock us down. Hey, we'll be right back. What really happened on RBN? Yeah, right there from the founding documents. Beautiful sentiment there. Unfortunately, they're declaring that racist along with everything else. They've even said that pro-life is racist. How about that? Just like all lives matter is racist. All-inclusive statement that is. Really kind of makes you wonder about that. The whole world seems to have gone bat crap crazy. We're talking about this coronavirus pandemic, this nonsense of what they're doing to us, and their stories keep changing. There's no internal consistency to any of it. They did say on the early onset of this that they were going to have to lock us down, for a couple years in order for all this to, run its course. And this is really ridiculous because we've had plenty enough viruses and flus that have been even more devastating than this. We never locked down for that. We had an instance where we had 1.5 million deaths from tuberculosis. Did we lock the country down for that? No, we didn't. So it really makes you wonder if there's any validity to any of this. They definitely have an agenda behind this, and we've got to be very watchful over this and very wary, because what will eventually happen is they will lie to us to the point that nobody will believe them, and there eventually will be some really bad germ that if you get it, 70% of you will all die from it. There will probably be some engineered thing, but we won't believe a word out of their mouths. It's absolutely ridiculous. Okay, now I wanted to kind of save the calls for later, but we do have a call related to the virus. So we're going to go ahead and take this real quick here, and then try to get back on target here in the next segment. So Mark in North Carolina, what's on your mind?
On you guys. Hey, I was, I'm really following this stuff really closely and all that. I've been putting on my own YouTube channel, about what a fraud a lot of this stuff is, including the testing. And I was talking to somebody I know today, who's he's actually, he keeps himself in shape. As a matter of fact, he's in better shape than me, even because he's a personal trainer. And we were talking about, how, what a fraud this whole thing is, and including the mask wearing and all that. And then I asked him, I said, so, well, would you ever get the vaccine? He said, no way. Neither would I, of course. And I said, what about this testing? I said, a lot of these hypochondriacs are flocking to these test stations. There's nothing wrong with them, or maybe they got sniffles or something like that, and they're getting these tests. He says, no way either. No way he'd get something like that. And then he told me something really disturbing. He said he's heard from people who did get the test and all that they're sticking that thing up your nose so deep it's actually touching your brain. Now, if that's the case, man, people need to pay for it.
Well, I had it done, Mark, and I can tell you, Mark, they went up pretty farther than I thought they'd ever go. I was kind of surprised, but they went in the deep nasal passages, farther than your normal Q-tip could go. I'd say probably 2.5 Q-tips in length is about how far deep they went in. And it was very uncomfortable.
Wow.
But that's how they did the test.
You don't think it touched your brain?
No. Didn't touch my brain. If it came out and I saw gray matter on it, then I probably would have really been complaining. But no, I didn't see any gray matter on the end of it. No.
Well, I mean, it doesn't necessarily take gray matter out. It might have just touched it or something. You know what I mean?
No,
I don't know.
No, there's no way.
At all.
It didn't go. I mean, no, that's not possible. No.
I mean, I would not get this test. Like I said, I think what's happening is people flocking to this thing. You got an army of hypochondriacs, and they're being scared.
Yeah, you do.
That's by what's going on.
But what I can tell you, Mark, is going to be a problem, and we talked about it last night on John's show. He played a clip from a pharmacist whistleblower that came out about legislation that's coming out in the future here, and she was so bothered by it. She says, I cannot continue my job anymore. So she quit her position and now has become a whistleblower. New legislation, they are going to use intimidation on getting compliance on being tested and vaccines. And that's where we all need to come together and unite. And basically, they've shut down the country already. I say we need to take it a step further and basically shut it down ourselves. We're talking about total gridlock here now and getting back control of our bodies. of my person. I'd be damned if anybody's going to tell me that I must comply and take this, because if you say once yes to this vaccine, Mark, I guarantee you that's opening the door for more vaccines that will be made mandatory. If you said once yes, you'll be saying yes every time after that. We have to say no. No way.
Give them an inch, they take a mile. We've seen it happen.
Well, the thing about this vaccine is this is meant to change your DNA. This is extremely dangerous.
It's an RNA, right? It'll change your RNA. Correct.
I don't think they want to cure anything. I think they're out to kill.
No, they don't.
I think they're out to sterilize. I believe they're out to sterilize us. They're out there. This is Bill Gates behind this, and the people got to stand up and say, no, you're not going to do this to us. We will fight. We will go to war if necessary before we let
Absolutely.
you do this.
We will stand up. Hey, Mark. Mark.
Okay.
Hey, thanks for the call. Yeah. We got to move on, but hey, appreciate your call there, brother. Yeah, we do need to stand up for sure. Hey, we'll be right back after these messages here. What really happened on RBN? Now, we definitely know that the likes of Bill Gates and all these eugenicists have been bragging about controlling the population through use of vaccines. And if the vaccines were all that good for us, why would that be reducing the population? It just doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of agendas on there. And now we've got this whole COVID thing, and this testing thing is rather kind of a quandary to me, because if this is also dangerous that we've got to wear masks and stuff like that, I would figure that any little droplet of saliva, would test positive on this, and they would be able to test this stuff. So, Steve Elkins, why are they going so deep into your head with this nasal swab for this test? Why is that necessary?
Well, on the breaker, I had to go actually and find a Q-tip to see how long is a Q-tip here. And I'm going to revise my statement earlier, because it was on, it was a good size stick, wooden stick, of course, the swab at the end. And I'm going to say, well, let me give you a little brief description of what actually happened here when I had my outburst there. And they finally told me to go into my car, go back to your car and wait for us to call. This is the oddest thing, this testing station. I thought I'd ticked them off and they would probably never test me or really make me wait in this hot car forever to punish me for being outspoken. But I got a call within about 20 minutes from inside, and they told me to go back around to the first starting station, get in my car, drive back to starting point A, and wait for somebody else to come out, and they will actually do the test while you were in your car. So I pull up, and two people come out. One's holding the test. They're both gowned up, masks, full face shield. And basically put your head out the window, put your head back as far as you can. She pulls out the swab and puts it up into my sinuses. She went back probably, I'm looking at, I know it was on a wooden stick, but I'm going to say the length, maybe a smidgen more than one Q-tip. She went back pretty far. I thought to myself, she goes, you may even gag. That's how deep we're going to go. So that's how the test went. And that's in the scenario. That's what happened to me. Everything was so. Like I said, I'd reached the maximum, my threshold of stupidity and tolerance, and I was just lucky that they didn't really let me wait for a couple hours, because I was in a hot seat here saying I need this done, because I was of the understanding they would not do my procedure until it came back, but they still would have done it. But that's the ordeal I went through.
Wow. That's quite an ordeal there, Steve. And it doesn't make sense that they're putting people through all of that stuff. It seems like it would be a whole lot easier just to take a little swab of some saliva or something like that and run a test on that. And they would still be able to steal your DNA from all of that, Sure. So if that's part of the covert reason, for being able to, do all these tests, is to get everybody in a DNA database, because they really are getting absolutely rabid on the track and trace and information overload. I don't trust them, and for good reason.
Well, and you shouldn't. Their track record is so bad. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Any government that actually could attack their own people in a false flag should not be trusted.
Over and over and over again. Right. It's not like it was an isolated incident. So let's rewind the time a little bit here, because we want to talk about this Anthony Fauci character. And Steve Stars is very familiar with this Anthony Fauci character because he did a documentary, the AgeFraudVideo.com, if you want to go see that. Steve, tell us about Anthony Fauci.
Well, Fauci was behind the situation with Gallo, even at the very beginning in 1984. He was kind of a higher up at National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, but he hadn't taken over yet at that point. And he was the guy that was actually pushing the government machinery behind what Gallo was doing when he stole the research from Luc Montagnier's lab, the Paris Pasteur Institute, and then pirated that LAV virus as his own as HTLV3, which became HIV when they worked out the details. But that's what got Fauci started. That's where he began. Okay, so he's been at this now for 36 years, ladies and gentlemen, going back to April 23rd, 1984. And then he exceeded, in control and became the head of National Institutes of Allergies and Infectious Diseases and has been at his maniac work ever since. We really do have a thing that is a real plague in this country. It's called cancer, but they've done precious little in that area. We have so many other problems, but they imagine diseases, they create these things, and then they create vaccines or programs or therapeutics or drugs or testing, or in the long run, what they really want is absolute control. And, I would say that if you ask me, do you believe that this was all a pandemic? No, I don't. I'm certain of it. I'm absolutely certain that that is exactly what they did. I don't have any question in my mind as to whether this was something that was planned and executed by a group of psychopaths, Bill Gates included, and this guy, Victor Zhao, who's now head of the Global Pandemic Monitoring Board, which is just a turnstile for all the money going through back and forth that they're planning to build out of this system. It's about a $2 trillion industry, but Fauci was involved in what they call the ACT. I think there's a film coming out now called The ACT, about in 1986, which they granted immunity to all the vaccine makers. Okay, so this was the beginning of a very dark and obscure occultic cabal of people who are beginning to start to work this thing on us, ladies and gentlemen. Now they've got HR 6666, which is the Trace Act. It's been tabled for what I understand, but we don't know when it's going to come back out. They're talking about already another threat coming this fall.
Oh, yeah.
And, just like you said earlier, Dave, I mean, if certain states don't cooperate, they'll have an uptick in cases, which we've seen in Texas and in Arizona and Florida. And I'm actually surprised with some of these clinics reporting 100% positives. Did you see that? There were at least 33. I'm surprised that Steve got through this. And I just thank God that he made it, because, I mean, it was like almost impossible to be to get out of this thing. But anyway, I don't want to go too far with this. We got some calls coming in. I know a lot of great people, but the point is simply this, that we have to stop these people now. And, I've heard recently, getting back to one of the things that one of our other callers said, I think it was Mark, Dave and Steve, and that is that, I'm now hearing that they're forbidding churches from meeting and having congregational get-togethers. And I'm suggesting that instead what we should do is have open air Second Amendment rallies. Bring your Bible and your AR right now, because we're, you know what I mean? This is where we got to go. We got to start forming militias, and we're going to tell Mr. Trump, where the hell have you been all this time? I mean, I'm a Trump supporter, but I could kick him hard in the ass, to be honest with you, out of love, for being so stupid. How can he be so stupid to let Fauci get into control like this? I mean, it shows
he's kind of boxed himself in here. Steve and Dave, he's kind of boxed himself in here. The mainstream media has made a hero out of Fauci, and he's an expert. Well, I've always said before, we had a caller calls in once in a while. His name is Tom in Utah. He's a retired pathologist, a smart guy. I think I met him back in Utah when I worked there. And he'll tell you, and I happen to agree with, that the smartest guy in the room is the guy that works in the basement. And you're not going to hear from that guy. And that information, when they do their lab work and they do all their research, that information is sent upstairs. And by the time it gets to the top level there, it's changed and for the agenda. So we're not going to hear from the guy in the basement at all. And I have to say that when you're talking about Anthony Fauci here, Steve and Dave, that he and I got to say, Jeff Zimmerman and the Napster have much in common: stealing research for profit.
Yep, they sure do. Well, we do have one hope, and that is the
Bill
bio.
Gates.
But
He
we have
also
one.
stole, his operating system, his Windows, his GUI from Apple, which has stolen it from Xerox. So there's a lot of that going around.
Yeah. But I was
Well,
going to say,
here's the guy that Bill Gates, the guy who has invented the Windows operating system, which is vulnerable to viruses. That's why we need the antiviral software. And here's the guy that can't even protect his own software, who wants to be behind finding the cure for the coronavirus here. It's quite comical. It's laughable, but it's not, because this is so serious. The new legislation, what is coming, is going to be very controlling, and it's going to track you. We haven't talked about the contract tracing or the health passports, but they are going to use intimidation and more fear on us, and it's not over. It's not over. This is just the beginning.
They already are using fear and intimidation against a lot of these businesses. I know one of our other hosts on KHNC, had a conversation with one of the business owners that she had some contact with over the 4th of July holiday, and they were threatening, his business. You must enforce all these rules, or we're going to come shut you down. It's everywhere this is happening. Now, Thankfully, we do see some kickback on that there are actually some attorneys out there that are taking these cases pro bono to defend these guys against this and reverse all this stuff. But we're already in all these shutdowns here. We've already lost so much business as a result of that. And being shut down as a result of these threats and intimidation, we're already on the brink of our businesses failing. I think that there's probably some kind of agenda to this where they're going to just make sure all the small businesses completely go out, and we'll just bail out all the big guys, and all we're going to have left is all the corporations. And these corporations will put in corporate policies that you must wear a mask, you must do this, you must do that in order to do business with us. And they don't even have to pass a law or do an executive order. They can do it by corporate fiat.
Yeah, I can tell you, take a step further than that. Not only killing off small business, but the creation of monopolies is what's going on here. I see Walmart and Amazon, who predicted all this is, like I said, very much planned. And these two guys are going to take over the majority of all the retail. You're not going to go to bricks and mortar stores anymore to buy anything. You're going to be buying it from Amazon online or Walmart online. They're creating monopolies, no doubt about it.
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Sherman Antitrust Act, anybody?
Yeah, well, there's more than that, of course.
I remember when they broke up AT&T back in the 70s, and you know what? They're bigger than ever. They broke up for a little while into little baby bells, but now they're just as big as ever. And then they come right back. So it's a temporary setback. It's a slap on the wrist. And they're not even doing that to them anymore. They're just letting all this stuff that's too big to fail just keep getting bigger. And all the mom and pop businesses and all the little guys, suffer. They never get bailouts, but we're forced to bail out even the cruise industry. Now, how ridiculous is that? Okay, that I feel sorry for those people that may lose their jobs for that. But is that something that is essential? Do we have to have cruise ships in order to survive? Well, no, we don't.
Well, this pandemic was killing two birds with one stone. First of all, it's essentially what we got here is a false flag and a finger pointing that in Wuhan, China, of course, they're the ones who did it. Of course, if you blame China and you shut down our commerce completely, of course, they manufacture about everything we ever want. So there goes Wall Street. This big part of this whole was probably an objective to tank Wall Street. They couldn't get a war kicked off. They had to figure a way. We got to bring Wall Street down to normal value. They've been pushing so much money through plunge protection and quantitative easing for years and years, billions and billions, up to trillions of dollars now. And they finally said, we can't keep doing this for much longer. We got to figure out a way out. Let's kill two birds with one stone. Since manufacturing is done in China, let's blame China. Let's shut down that commerce, that importation from China to the United States. Wall Street will tank. Of course, billions and billions of dollars are trading hands at the fall of Wall Street here. They have been looting America since day one of this pandemic, looting us big time.
That they have. This is the biggest theft in human history. And
yes, it is.
This is all the overt stuff that we see. Now, we're not privy to the Federal Reserve balance sheets. And what the Fed is doing is they're just making up, money out of their imagination, and they're buying everything up. And we're not allowed to see the balance sheet. We don't know how many trillions of dollars have gone into that. So all these assets are being transferred over to them for money that is absolutely fictitious. There's no legal, lawful consideration for any of it. So yes, this is the biggest theft in human history, and we're distracted by COVID. We're distracted by Black Lives Matter, and for some reason, they seem to be immune to this whole thing. We're not coming down on them for spreading this virus, but you have a church service or you have a Trump rally or something like that. Oh my God, you're going to kill everybody with that. But you can go burn your city down. You can go take down all the statues and destroy our history. And no, you're not causing any problem. You guys carry on. We're not going to do anything to you. It's bloody terrorism, and they're not doing anything about it. I mean, what's up with this world?
It's a two-pronged. It's a two-pronged.
You guys, I would say that the government's books, their bookkeeping is much like Enron's bookkeeping.
Yeah.
It is flawed. It is fudged. It's forged. They talk about the number of $22 trillion is our debt. Multiply that probably times 3, and you're probably right there nearby. That's probably a closer number.
Yeah, probably so. It is absolutely just insane what's going on here in this world. I never thought this would have gone this far down this road, without everybody just in the streets, up in arms about this whole thing. And we do start to see, a lot more protests and a lot more people, standing up. And I think it's a little too late. Hopefully I'm wrong in here. Hopefully people can start to, do some kind of useful, resistance. Don't get violent. Don't go hurt people. Don't go burn stuff down. That's not going to solve anything. We need to start breaking our dependencies from the system and start from the ground up. We'll maybe talk at some point about committees of safety again and the things that we can do to reestablish, control over this stuff. Now, here at the next segment, we'll start taking some phone calls here. We got, Don, Murr, and Ken, and probably some other people on here. 800-313-9443. Go ahead and load the phone lines up, and we'll start taking calls in this next segment. There's not enough time left in this one to get into any of that, but we certainly will entertain your calls. You got a lot of very related material here, so we'll keep talking about this, and we'll talk about what really happens and what really is going on here.
Sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's enough to drive us crazy.
Did you guys happen to catch that story the other day? Here's another one that's going to force you back inside here. You can get the panic button going again here. In Colorado, I guess a squirrel was found to have the plague, and I had to laugh because I guess they don't want you in the parks. They've been telling you not to go to the park, so don't go in the park, don't feed the squirrels, and go back into the house here until it's safe to come outside. So Rocky, I guess next Bullwinkle the moose will have the plague, and then if you start thinking about what we've been talking about, the homeless populations in Seattle, San Francisco, people defecating in the street over there in Seattle. That
why are they all dying from COVID, Steve? That kind of makes you wonder about that. All right, we'll be back with some phone calls. 800-313-9443. We'll be right back. And he ends up selling French fries. You see, that didn't actually work out for him all that well, unfortunately. But they are definitely stealing down on Wall Street. I mean, that's all they know how to do is stealing and theft and all that. All right, let's go to the phones. Don in Arizona. What's on your mind, Don?
Hello, yes. On this mask deal, I think every state has a little bit different wording on their law, I believe. Some states maybe don't have a law at all. In Arizona, it says you have to wear a mask in a public place unless to do so would adversely affect your health. And they don't ask for any documentation. You can say, now the store can still turn you down, or whatever the business is.
And they will.
Still say get out, but most of these stores want the market share. They like natural grocers. They want you to come in if you don't want to wear a mask. They'll take the business away from Whole Foods or whatever the deal is there, see?
Right.
And I'm not wearing a mask, and nobody's going to scare me. One lady, I was in Walmart, and one lady, I think she took her picture of me with her phone, and she was saying something about masks. I don't care. I'm not going to wear a mask, and I think I'm doing the right thing by not wearing a mask. And one statistic I'd like to see, you say some people are actually getting sick and dying from coronavirus. Were they wearing a mask? Maybe one of the reasons they got sick is because they were wearing a mask. They had lung conditions, and and everything stopped up in their lungs, and plus all the stress. Wearing a mask like that is stress, and stress is the worst thing for your health. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It is. You're absolutely right on that. Stress is bad for the immune system. You're right. You know, I kind of wonder if we're going to see, I don't know, maybe a couple of months down the road, before 6 months, are we going to see a whole new diagnosis here for a pulmonary disorder, because everybody breathing all this bad stuff in, this bacteria in, through exhalation of their own mass. I wonder if we're going to be seeing a new diagnosis of a lung disease. I wouldn't be surprised.
It very well could be.
There's some hope. I just saw something here that the Georgia governor, he voided all the, some of the mayors said you have to wear a mask, and he voided all that. He overruled them and said nobody has to wear a mask in Georgia. Mm-hmm. That's a popular position. Nobody wants to wear these damn masks. It's ridiculous. Everybody can see it's stupid, and I'm hoping that it's just not going to last, because they want it to last forever. That's what they're hoping.
Yeah, they do.
This is like,
well, there's a new campaign out there now to be politically correct. They're trying to put a positive spin, and of course, you're doing the right thing. You're protecting your neighbors, your friends. They haven't gone the route of being a patriot yet, to say wear the mask because you're a patriot, but they don't want to call them masks anymore. Masks are very negative. They want to call them facial coverings now, and put a positive spin on it. And of course, you've heard the commercials on TV. We are all in this together. We're all in this together. And that's where you got to say, no, we're actually not. And I've been pushing back on this. I will not wear the mask. Our Walmarts out here in my area have now gone to all mask or no service. I said, that's fine. I won't purchase from you. That's fine.
Yep, right, absolutely. All right.
Stuff from Amazon or something. You don't have to go to the store if you don't have to.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Don't. Thanks, Don. Don't get me started on that. Thanks for your call. Hey, we'll be right back here, top of the hour station ID break, and we'll be back with some more calls here on What Really Happened. RBN. All right, good afternoon. This is the second hour, What Really Happened, and I'm still happy it's Thursday. This is Etheric Dave, along with my co-host, Steve, and my other co-host, Steve. And we're in the process of taking some calls here. So let's get right back on into it. Murr in Wisconsin, what's on your mind?
You hear me? Oh, now you can hear me.
Yep, I hear you fine. Yeah,
I had to go through the sonic gate. Yeah, don't forget about Charles Lieber. I sent you guys that information. Notice how he's not in the Jews news because he's a Jew, okay? And he was a major player and probably still is. He was the head of the chemistry department in Harvard. And all those millions and probably billions going over there to Wuhan, and he has a couple of Chinese colleagues spreading this stuff with him. So this is not transmittable by air, people. You don't need a facial diaper. Those little things they stick up your head are a mini lobotomy. It does hit the cribiform. Okay, it's very penetrable into your olfactory. And it can cause a lot of pain, and they can even stick something in there you'd never know and never get it out either without killing yourself. So don't get tested if you don't need to, and you probably won't need to if you're taking care of yourself as far as cancer. You cut out coffee, alcohol, and sugar, okay? Coffee is, what is it, Steve? I always want the cholesterol. Yeah, but it's, but what's it called? It not cholesterol. What's the other word?
Well, it increases your peristalsis. I know that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it overworks your adrenals.
You talking about your cardiac from the caffeine itself, the cardiac?
Cortisol. That's the word. Cortisol. I'm looking for.
Okay, cortisol levels. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, raises your cortisol. And also, I wanted to ask you: did you start taking a lot more vitamin C when this thing started coming around?
No. I take my normal. Actually, the only thing I increased during the winter months when people are always around sick and my stress level's a little higher because of my work. I try to practice everything healthy as far as rest, diet, nutrition, exercise, hydration, all the good stuff. But I will take a little extra vitamin C and a little bit of vitamin D extra, plus get sunshine vitamin D, which is the best for my immune system. And since I've moved down to Florida, I got to be honest, since I left California, I have been healthier, other than the kidney stones, which is not attributed to any of this. I've been a healthier person since I've been down here.
Kidney stones is hydration, but also ascorbic acid is vitamin C. Get natural sources. If you take a lot of ascorbic, I know this because I was talking to some other radio folks on another network, and because my father, he's like, the health nut daughter, right? So this was years ago, but I told him, do not get ascorbic acid. Get vitamin C. You need that, okay? But he, being frugal and where I got it from, he got ascorbic acid anyway and then tried to blame it on me when he had a kidney stone starting to form. Because, see, it will bind with calcium. And that's what makes the stones. That's why I was asking you if you took a lot more. And it matters what kind.
Yeah, no, I didn't do that. But I did find out that citrate is a good thing to break up the calcium oxalate. And I'm going to start now drinking more lemon water and lime water to make sure that I can break up the calcium oxalate, that it doesn't formulate the crystals and stones in my kidney. So I am going to change a couple of things in my dietary habit, but I'm also going to increase more hydration. And I actually made a mistake a couple of times this summer. I was a workhorse out there in the heat of the work, and I threw myself into a dehydration state, which was a very bad thing to do. Nearly passed out, and that is not a good thing to do.
Yeah, when you start to get thirsty, it's already too late. We need about half a gallon for every 50 pounds of body weight. So every adult male needs at least a gallon.
Yeah.
So you really should be getting a gallon and a half, and that's water, not coffee, because coffee's diuretic and does the opposite.
Yeah.
Exactly. We always like to think we can trade off, whatever. But so just take care of yourselves, people. And don't buy this hype, please. We don't need any priests of medicine law or of the spirit. And this is a spiritual battle. I kind of like how Trump is going and calling it China virus, because it breaks the spell on this COVID thing. If you look COVID up with the Hebrew translation, it comes back as Kobe, K-O-B-E. And he was in secret societies and got a little in over his head because he found out over there in China, but American companies, they were like Lieber, they were putting, opioids in weight reduction drugs. So you see, you need to get rid of this media. Media is plural for medium. Medium are witches, again from the Hebrew. Okay, so you just get away from this media, because what they ask your doctor. Well, I don't have a doctor. Yeah, I don't need one. I haven't for decades. Any kind of doctor. You don't need
definitely been lying to us. That they've been trusted with the airwaves. It was supposed to be a public service to keep us informed, and they've been lying to us. They've been betraying us in the most egregious way.
Get rid of that box. Get rid of that box, people. And then no movies, not their music. They have a certain tempo. It's always been this way. And it was made official in 53 that Rockefeller, whose real name is Roggenfelder, you think Rothschild would trust anybody but a cousin in the family? Take care of the Western Hemisphere?
Probably not. Okay, thanks, Murph, for the call. We got the phone call lines just stacking up here. So, hey, we can take this more into tomorrow, because I think Steve Elkins is going to be, sitting in. I'll be in for a little bit tomorrow, but I do have some other things going. Murph, thanks for the call. We're going to move on down to Ken in New York. Ken, what's on your mind?
Hi, guys. Well, there are a couple of good movies, and one of them would be A Tale of Two Cities, and another one might be The Scarlet Pimpernel. I have a question about the COVID test. Is the how do you say, like the saliva or the medium that they're looking to do the test on, any different from swabbing your mouth than it is sticking that thing up your nose?
In all honesty, we do TB tested. You do a cough, deep cough and deep breathe, and you expel any kind of fluid out. If you get the mucus, that's great. If you don't, we can definitely still test the saliva for TB. I'm not sure who got the idea to say, let's go up into the nasal passages deep. It's all kind of interconnected here, the back of the throat, the back of the mouth, everything. So I don't know. I think this was a little bit of using a little bit of fear and procedure to get people to say this is really serious stuff. They got to go deep inside the nasal cavities here, because I surely would believe that you can actually swab the back of my throat too, or inside of my mouth, and do the same thing. But that doesn't look quite so scary. And the whole idea is creating more fear with this COVID-19. So you got people in hazmat suits with face shields and masks and pulling out little test tubes with a little swab. That looks pretty serious. That looks scary. And this, like I said, increasing the fear factor on this is definitely going to benefit these people, because people in fear, again, they do not think rationally. They do not use logic anymore. I saw a commercial today, you guys. Let's check this out. They're talking about in Michigan right now, with the heat wave going on in the Midwest here, they're trying to beef up the grid, so they don't have people, power outages. They showed a guy on a 100-foot telephone pole with his helmet and a mask. I kid you not, the guy had a mask. He was 100 feet up in the air. Now, they've got people really not thinking that a guy thinks I have to wear a mask and I'm on 100 feet up in the air on a pole, that I must be protected from COVID as if it's flying around in the air. We've seen people on motorcycles. We've seen people driving around their car by themselves with a mask on. Now, this campaign of fear has really, really worked well, that people are not using any common sense at all whatsoever, and they're just simply following orders because they've been told to. They don't question anymore.
That's right. It's all about media. I hate to go ahead with that word, but this is all about a media war on you, ladies and gentlemen. These are psychological warfare tactics. Wearing the mask, the distance. You notice how the news speak, they say, let's all get together and keep 6 feet apart. You know what I mean? It's all nonsense. And it was all fabricated. And the flooding. If you look at that video by Amazing Polly on BitChute, it's the one that's entitled Global Mafia Media Racket or Healthcare Racket. Look at that. You will see these people saying at Davos, at the World Economic Forum, we need to flood the media. Most of you listening, and I'm sure you're aware of this, when you hear something repetitious like this, a mantra that's going on about COVID-19, the coronavirus, COVID-19, ask your doctor, get tested, COVID-19, the test, recent results, let's get the latest result. You know what I mean? When you hear this all the time,
that's right,
you are under a psyop. You're under a psyop. Go ahead, buddy. I'm sorry, but I had to get that in there. This is a psyop.
Anybody knows who's taken a marketing course that it's repetition sells. It actually sinks into your subconscious after a while. And we've seen the 24/7 news, the mainstream media. Of course, I predicted long ago that what the 24/7 news cycle with like CNN would become a disinformation center. And they simply just spin it until you finally repeat it after a while. And you will. By the rule of threes, when they advertise on TV, you'll see they'll advertise the product, the telephone number, call. This is the product again, telephone number, 3 times. 3 times. Now, if you listen to CNN and those guys 24/7, I guarantee you, most people, a lot of people, will buy into what they've been told, and it is disinformation.
Yeah, repetition over and over and over and over and over and over, and just when you get tired of it, over and over and over again. That's all the hell you see on the mainstream media anymore.
It's like that song you hate on the radio. If you hear it enough times, even when you hate it, you can't get it out of your head. And COVID right now is that. Yeah.
I think I have a bit of news. I just got recalled to my job for next week. And it looks like the state agency that controls transport for disabled people we're being recalled back to our jobs. And it's supposed to be a policy meeting, which I'm sure they're going to be making us sign something. So the only thing I can suggest, and which I'm suggesting for myself, is whenever you sign something, sign without prejudice above it and quote UCC 1-308. Because then there's a possibility.
Kenny, you want to have some fun? Kenny, you want to have some fun? Take the document and say, you know what? Let me have my lawyer take a look at this and watch their face.
Yeah, wow.
You say, you know what? Let me. I'm not a legal guy. Let me take this to my attorney here and let him look at this. I may want to add some amendments to this. We'll check it out. Thank you very much. Try that one.
Yeah. That'll probably go over like a lead balloon, but. I don't believe that they're allowed to cause you injury, and I nosebleed pretty easy. So if they stick something up my nose, the likelihood that I'll get a bloody nose from it, and then I'll get myself put into the emergency room.
Yeah.
Let's see what that does.
Very well.
Be careful, Ken.
That's a whole lot of not good. Yeah, definitely be careful, Ken. Hey, we got a lot of calls loading up. So,
Right.
Any last comments before we move on there, Ken?
Nope, move on.
All right. Hey, thanks for the call, brother. And I want to real quick relay a message from Keith Rogers. During the bailout, the CEOs received over $270 million in bonus pay. Isn't that disgusting? Yes, indeed. And Steve Elkins responded to that. Only $270 million? That we know of. It probably was quite a bit higher than that. All right, moving on down the line here. Mo in Florida. What's on your mind, bro?
How you doing, guys? Great information and really good callers. You got time for me before the break, or can you carry me over?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Mike, I've been following Mike since he started, and the whole thing. I know where you guys are at. It's just refreshing to hear some common sense. But just a thing that's always just kind of blows my mind is somebody broke into your home and you called the police and they had a detective and you checked back later and they said who was it? And they said, well, they were arrested. Who were they? They were arrested. You can't fight a war. Just say we're fighting them. You can't win a football game, so we're playing them. And that's what I think the whole problem is here. We don't identify the enemy. We say they did this. Somebody say the deep state. Maybe it's the Zionists, Rothschild, the black nobility. And I think that's where it's at. If you can't identify the enemy, you can't win a war. And we're at war here. And I understand. I mean, I'm a Christian. I was, I don't follow a particular religion, but, I'm a Christian. And I follow the, you can't be the example like Christ. Whatever, I don't care who you are. But
well, Mo, I can say everybody at this round table right now, and you'll agree that we know one enemy, at least one, maybe two, that are part of this, and we know Fauci's part of it. We know Bill Gates is part of it. There's two on the enemy list. I can assume that George Soros has his hands all over this. There's a lot of people, and we've identified at least three right there. Now, what can we do about these people? I don't know. Do we really have law enforcement anymore? Do we really have, do we follow the rule of law? Do we even have a Constitution and a Bill of Rights anymore? I scratch my head and thinking, how are these people getting away with this stuff? How come they haven't been charged with sedition, trying to overthrow the government? These coups, the FBI being used against Donald Trump, and I'm not a Trump fan, but how come nothing is being done when it comes down to the rule of law to enforce the law? And I have no idea why people's hands are being tied who should be responding and saying, we're going after this guy. We've heard from QAnon, which I don't believe in QAnon, but we've heard they have 40,000 indictments. It's coming soon. It's coming soon. That's another psyop going there. But the problem, what's happening here? Where is rule of law?
Yeah, if they can pull down, if they can pull off 9/11, whatever you think about it, you just watch Building 7. For years watching that building, but it first came down, it was obviously a demolition, and nobody even brings it up. Can you imagine that?
Controlled demolition.
Textbook. The Lazo brothers, we were envious. Where did they get these guys to do this? I wanted to hire them, I think. The great demolition experts, the Lazo brothers. So, I think it's just much, I think they hammered us so hard that people are just in a stupor. They can't, I don't know what they're going to pull next. If somebody would have told you this 6 months ago, you'd have laughed at them, even though guys like us follow this stuff. We don't believe the mainstream media. But I just think we should, my main thing is I think it's the them, they, this. Okay, let's just say Rothschild. I think I think George Soros is a minion. I think Fauci and them are minions. Gates are minions. I think the money's coming from higher up, whatever it is.
Well,
I don't know.
Mo, let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt just a second here, Mo. I mean, these aren't interesting times, more bizarre times. When I heard Pelosi last week saying about the statues coming down, and she's not really tied to statues, and people will do what they want to do. How many politicians are sitting back, Republican and Democrat right now, are sitting back, their arms are crossed, and they're going, they're not saying anything. They're tearing down history, trying to rewrite history, and nobody on either side is saying, stop this. Trump hasn't done what he should have done to stop the destruction of our history, and everything's being revised and channeled and something. Oh, that's racist. That's racist. That's racist. Everything for their interpretation, they're finding to be racist. Amazing that, and we have politicians, representatives who are standing by doing nothing. Law enforcement standing back watching the destruction, lassoing a statue, taking it down, throwing it into a harbor, and nothing is happening. Antifa walking around, beating up on people. A guy comes out of his house to defend his house from being ransacked and burned down with a rifle, is now facing indictment because he walked out of his house with a rifle on his own property. This is the most bizarre thing, you guys, I have ever seen in my life.
Absolutely backwards.
Bizarre.
Because they're not doing anything about the terrorism, and that's what this Black Lives Matter stuff is. It's terrorism.
Right.
Yeah,
and
you know,
the way the media is acting about
on
this
national
whole thing.
TV and nothing done about it. They you give them an inch, they take a yard. You know, the Overton window where they go way out and then they back it off. And you get used to it. People are used to wearing these face diapers. What's next? Is this COVID pass where you can't leave your house and you can't fly, you can't buy groceries without your COVID pass? This is, you know, I hate to tell you this, guys. I'll let you go because I'm taking up too much time. You guys are great. It's so nice to talk to somebody that thinks outside the box and that cares. But I think you know, and I'm a nonviolent person. But you know, don't mess with me. You know, I'll protect myself and my family to the end. But I think, you know, if you take the French Revolution, I'm sure they had the same thoughts for a long time, you know, before they just said, "Now with this, we're getting tired of starving here. We're not going to eat cake. Come on, let's go." And I'm up, and I think that's what they want. I really do.
Yep.
They're pushing a race war. They're pushing a war with this.
That's exactly
I've never
it.
seen
Hey,
anything like it. These people
the
are
break,
vicious.
Mo, we got to go. Hey, thanks for the call, brother. We'll be right back. Yeah, I think I've got the trifecta of Steve going. I got my co-host Steve, my other co-host Steve, and we're going to go to Steve in West Virginia. Steve, what's on your mind?
Hey, I got one quick point before I get to my main thing that I want to talk about. But you guys say it's the media's fault. I say it's your parents' fault. I say it's my parents' fault. I say it's their parents before them's fault. When you come out of the womb, you're programmed to believe in the police, believe in these politicians. And I'll tell you something. If you don't understand that these politicians and crooks and the police and all that are dishonest and unethical and whatever, then you haven't learned anything your whole life, because your intuition should tell you that just by watching, and you can feel it. You can feel the dishonesty. So it's not.
You know, Steve, what I would answer to that is, you're actually, the ownership starts after the birth, when the birth certificate is handed out and the Social Security number is given. They own you then. The ownership starts right
but
then.
I'm talking about as far as programming and what you think. It's your parents that where you get your.
Well, your parents have so much time in teaching. Your parents should be the greatest teacher, instructor in your life. Unfortunately, we see the broken families. There isn't a nuclear family, really, especially in the Black family. I'm sorry to say that, but that's a fact. Your teaching comes from your parents. So if your parents aren't doing the job and you're going to the school system, the public school system, and the indoctrination process and all the liberal teachings, well, they got you for 8 hours. Guess what? They're going to own you.
No, yeah, but
a lot of our parents were also indoctrinated with the same BS that we were, so it gets, handed down generation to generation. There is something to that. Now, I know my particular situation was different. I was brought up to be very skeptical of all this, not to just blindly trust this stuff. So I don't have this wake-up story like 9/11 woke me up or anything like that. I was always very skeptical of that. And so there are people out there that have, decent, parents that have been woken up by, whatever events in their lives, because you can see this stuff on its face. But before we get too far down the road, because I agree, with most of what you're saying there, Steve, you had another main point. So let's get to that real quick.
Yeah, my main point, the reason why I called is I just want to offer some empirical evidence on the current economy. I'm restoring an old Queen Anne Victorian right now, and I will tell you that I have shopped lately for antique furniture, furnishings, used building supplies, everything off Facebook's Craigslist, and I will tell you guys on at least 10 occasions, if something is $250, I'm unable to make an offer for $200 and secure the deal. Most of the people want full price for everything, and that tells me that most of these people are very secure with what's going on right now. Now, I ran into a similar situation in 2008 when I lived in Oregon and was trying to sell my house, and at that point in time, I could buy stuff for pennies on the dollar. But antique furniture is a asset that depreciates. It doesn't really increase in value. And if I can't buy, on multiple occasions, if I can't buy it at a reduced price, then something's telling me that the people everywhere are feeling extremely comfortable. They're not scared of, what could possibly happen here in the future if they change the monetary system and go to an asset-backed, gold or whatever, silver.
Steve, they're not going to do that. They're going to the digital currency. Actually, here's what I theorize is going to happen, you two. This is what's exactly going to happen. You're going to see that some test study is going to come out here. They're going to declare that your cash is filthy. It's contaminated with bacteria, all kinds of stuff, your coins. They created the coin shortage the last couple of weeks. That's by shutting down 2 mints. So they want to force people to swipe the card. They want you to go to the digital currency. We're not going back to a gold currency. But that would be the smart thing to do, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to be a gold-backed currency. They're going to a digital currency that actually can be controlled. Cash in your hand, in your wallet, they cannot control that. In a digital currency, they can use that as leverage for future government debt that they will acquire. And I guarantee you that's the direction we are going in. We are going into the direction of a digital currency. They will use this COVID pandemic for many, many objectives, no doubt about it. Cash is going to be gone. It's going to be digital currency, and they will control it all.
And if they brought back the silver coinage, Steve, the silver coinage would be perfectly safe because the viruses and the bacteria and the funguses cannot live on silver. So the fact that we don't have the silver coinage anymore should tell you all you need to know on that.
Yeah, I would say, though, that the digital currency is farther off than you guys think because they need to get 5G everywhere and able to do that. And still... it's a digital currency like that is still a fiat currency, and I mean, how are people going to trust that?
Well, your 5G was pushed. Your 5G was pushed really, really hard and really fast. Matter of fact, anybody I know was trying to fight it. I know lots of people were trying to fight it for coming in their cities for the health concerns, but they're going to use that for their digital tracing, contract tracing.
Exactly what they're going to do. All right, hey, Steve, thanks for the call. Steve, hold on here, because we'll be back after these messages on RBN. What really happened? Oh, it just keeps getting worse, I tell you. It's an absolute disaster out there. It's just getting worse until we actually stand up and do something. So during the break, we have this little type chat thing that we can go back and forth and communicate with each other off air. Steve, number one, Steve Stars, had a comment here. And I want you to go ahead and put that over the air because I think this is, worth repeating to the listeners.
Well, I like Steve's comments from West Virginia, but I would have to debate him on whether the point is that the politicians, cops, and judges are the real problem because they're corrupt and it's not the media. I would say no. Actually, the reality is if the media does its job, these people are exposed and they're cast out. Now, if people don't understand that this pandemic was set up by Fauci, Gates, and Victor Zhao, if you still don't know who he is, you need to find out. If people actually knew what was going on, we wouldn't be wearing masks. We wouldn't be shutting down the economy. All of this psyop would fall apart. I think Abraham Lincoln said this. He said, if the public is properly informed about any issue, properly informed, they can make the right decision just about every time at the polls. And so, I mean, I think it's very true today. I mean, we don't know anything about 9/11. We don't really see what happened with the Patriot Act. By the way, I think the NIH, the FEMA, CDC, et cetera, all got behind the Patriot Act with another order to allow them this kind of authority that we're under right now. People have, I mean, we talk about the virus, but as I've said before, it's very evident to me that this was all planned, and this thing is way out of control. It's less than 1% of the population that are going to be, fatally affected by COVID-19, and yet we've shut down our whole economy. I mean, think about it, friends. Lies are dangerous things. Sticks and stones will break your bones, but lies will damn your soul. I want you to wake up to that. You've got to be paying attention. And I know we've got a great audience here, and I appreciate Mike giving us some time and everybody here at RBN. You guys need to support us because this is where you're going to find out the information. We have to be on top of what's really going on. This is where the core group of people who will make the difference. I think we should arm up like Cliven Bundy and face these people down if necessary. And Trump needs to know that now. He needs to know it now. We are not going to put up with this, Mr. Trump. Now, I'm not going to vote for him.
Mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Right on. We need to tell him.
It would be bold, you guys, if Trump were to make the change right now and get rid of Fauci, but I think he's been boxed in. But mainstream media, like I said, has made a hero, made an expert out of Fauci. He is simply boxed in now. He cannot get rid of Fauci, and he needs to. But he can't.
Yeah. But if
he got rid of Fauci, don't you think this thing would probably stop?
Right, absolutely it would.
Maybe not, because you got too many other players on that. We don't need to get too much farther down the rabbit hole in here because we still have got a bunch of callers, waiting, and we need to kind of get through that, and make sure everybody's got a chance to have their voice heard. So with that, let's go to Jerry in Chicago. Jerry, what's on your mind?
Good afternoon, gentlemen, and thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to add a comment to what Murr was calling it about with the hydration. And I'll be honest with you, I do 12 cups of not coffee and not tea anymore because I'm on Dr. Johnny Delirious's HTMA diet. I do this stuff called Dandy Blend, and if you mix it properly, it tastes like a very strong cup of coffee with no caffeine. And it's dandelion roots, so it's actually a detox for your system. The other thing I do is I do another 2 liters of drinks during the course of the day. I eat 1 meal a day, and that's about 7 meals a week. And I supplement with Longevity products, Health Masters products, Dr. Axe products, Balance of Nature products, all in filtered water. I don't distill it. I filter it. And I got to tell you something. I went from 218 pounds down to 176 pounds.
Wow.
In less than 6 months, and that was 11 years ago.
Wow. Congratulations.
Well, absolutely excellent. That sounds good if you kept all that off. And you don't want to lose the weight too fast because generally from what I understand is when you lose the weight really fast, it tends to want to come back pretty quickly.
Well, the funny thing was it didn't come back. Now, I just bought 32 waist jeans 2 weeks ago, and I'm ready to buy 31 waist jeans. Wow. That's what I graduated high school with 44 years ago.
Well, I can tell you right now that your weight loss, you've decreased the workload of your heart by losing all that weight. Your heart is going to be much better off. Good job.
Well, I was hoping to release a little bit of the pressure on my knees and my joints and everything else like that too, and it has. I compete with guys that are in their 30s every day at work, and I'm in my 60s. And I got to be honest with you, they at the end of the day they look at me and they just say, "How do you do this?" I said, "Well, do you notice I don't eat at break? Do you notice I don't eat at lunch? I just drink something, and I just move on with my day." And they said, "Yeah, that's kind of weird. What do you drink?" I said, "A vitamin drink." And everybody at work has tasted it, and they all said the same thing. "Wow, this tastes great." And I drink this instead of pop at home. Like I can't have pizza because of the Johnny Delirious diet. I can't have any of the good stuff that I really liked because of the Johnny Delirious diet. But no, I do this stuff, and I drink this stuff all day long religiously. I pre-mix it. for the week in dry containers, and then I just pour it into 2-liter pop bottles and shake it up real good, and then pour it in my 1-liter pop bottles and throw them in my cooler. And that's all I wanted to add. And I think if you drink this stuff with all these vitamins and nutrients and minerals, you don't have kidney stones. I have never had them. You don't get sick. I have not been sick in 11 years. And
let me tell you about my
kidney,
kidney stone history here. My mother has them. My grandmother has them. My sister has them. I think it's a familial thing. We kind of grew up with that problem. I think I inherited it. I just, for some reason, produced a lot more calcium oxalate, and I will do some diet restriction, but I think I have a family history, and that's something I've got to be careful of.
Okay, I believe in that. It runs in the family. So, hey, thanks for taking my call. You guys go on with your show. I'm dying to listen more.
All right. Absolutely. Hang out there and enjoy the rest of the show. Thanks for your comments there, Jerry. Yeah, there is a lot of complex things in there. Family histories definitely do play into it. Our genetics, our environment, our diet. There's a lot of things. It's a very complex thing, and it's not always a one-size-fits-all for everybody because our chemistries are different depending on our blood types and a lot of other factors in there. All right, let's move on down here. We got Butch in Missouri. Butch, what's on your mind?
Hey, gang. First off, I want to say there is a video on YouTube. The poster is the Truth, Freedom, and Money podcast, and they are doing a rundown of the different people who are running for office here in Missouri. And I live in the 33rd Senate District, and one of the people that is running, his name is Van Kelly. The other person that's running, she's still in office, Carla Enslinger. Anyway, I have gotten a hold of Vincent Finelli and Robert Moore, the Liberty Man, and a few other people. And what's going on is the Truth, Freedom, and Money podcast is showing the people I just told you who are against or not for our gun rights. And the fellow that they are promoting, his name is Robert Ross, and he's a veteran. And the fella, Van Kelly, his family has been in politics for a very long time here in Douglas County, Missouri. I live 5 miles south of Laura Ingalls Wilder's home. And in the wintertime, you can practically see the Kelly's homestead. In any event, the brother of Van Kelly, who is running, has a bunch of FEMA trailers sitting on his farm. And I'm not very good with these devices, but if you go on, I guess, Google Earth, I just use my weather app, KY3. And if you look down on C Highway 130 on the map, you got to kind of get in close. You'll see a bunch of FEMA trailers on his property. And then on the other side of the county, the west side of the county, if you go down I-5 about 2 miles south of the county line into Douglas County, there is a Mansfield Building Supply, and they have FEMA trailers sitting there, and they have been there for a long time. And I'm encouraging you and anybody who lives in the 33rd District to not vote for Van Kelly nor Carla Enslinger. If you can get a hold of the Douglas County Herald, just came out yesterday, you will see that these people, they're posers, they're rhinos. And now we've just found out that the Senator Mike Cunningham of our district also supports these two. And what the problem is they will not give you definite answers on their gun rights or on our gun rights. And the fellow that is running against them, Robert Ross, he is for every one of our protected gun rights. And I just wanted to put that out there to everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Butch, for that. You're very welcome. Well, it shouldn't be up to the opinions of the various politicians on what rights we should or should not have. Our rights existed before the government was instituted, and the rights are recognized and protected by the Bill of Rights. which is a founding document, which is an immutable high law of the land. And it shouldn't matter what their opinions are of that, because the Constitution clearly states that we have the right to bear arms, period. End of list. Okay. But definitely if they want to be able to infringe on that, yeah, we probably don't need to be voting for folks like that. We need people to stand up for the Constitution of this United States. All right, let's go to Kenny in Texas. Kenny, what's on your mind?
Hey, good evening, guys. Hey, I got a question. Steve, you made a comment last night on this Stepmiller show about shutting things down, and I had been thinking, what would happen if we all quit making our mortgage payments, quit making our car payments, quit making all the payments, everybody, United States wide, quit making them payments? What would that force the government, the banks, the money people to maybe rethink things? And
I think it would. I think it would. Yeah, I think it would. I really do think if we are all in compliance. The problem is how many people do you know that are willing to take that risk and do that? They're always waiting for somebody else to do that move and make that action, and they're all afraid. The government uses intimidation really wisely, and we'll prosecute you, and they'll grab a few people and they'll put them in jail to make an example, to send a message out to the rest. But if you're right, if everybody was on the same page, thoroughly discussed it, of course, the centralized banking system, the cartels, I call them the cartels, and simply said, I'm not going to make my house payment. We all united and said, we're not going to do it. We would hold that power, and we would get power back, the government back, because the centralized bankers are taking over everything. They control everything, and we would get it back. But it's going to take everybody to get in the same boat to say, stop. Yeah, it would work.
Is that what you was talking about last night? Or
I was talking about what remaining businesses are left at some point in time, because like I said, the digital, what they're going to be doing is with new legislation is saying that you must have the COVID testing, you must receive the vaccine. Of course, we're now knowing it's between 2 and 4 vaccines, which is a red flag. When somebody says you have to have 2 to 4 vaccines, guess what? You're talking about low percentage, and trying to get an equivalent percentage that might be acceptable to say, now you have some immunity. Now, Trump has gone off on the deep end saying he's hoping for 80% effectiveness with a COVID-19 vaccine. Here, they couldn't even get, not even a fraction of that with the regular seasonal flu. You're looking at 35 to 42% for the regular flu vaccine. And actually, I wish people would start talking about it more, but the virus is mutating. It's changing. When a virus changes, you cannot tailor make a vaccine that will hit that pathogen 100%. It's a crapshoot as it changes and changes and changes. By the time the vaccine comes out, you may be 3 or 4 virus changes already. Your vaccine is not going to be effective at all. The whole thing's a scam. That's all I can tell you. It is a major money-making scam because they cannot make a vaccine to target this thing. Better to have a healthy lifestyle, do the right things to build your immune system up, and be able to handle pathogens. We're in this realm now of that we're not supposed to use our immune systems anymore. We're supposed to rely on big pharma to come up with solutions, and every time they do, it makes your immune system labile. There's an old saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. It's true. It's like your muscles. If you have an injury and you sat on the couch for a whole week, when you finally got up, you'd move around saying, geez, I feel like I'm a little weak in my legs. I've lost some muscle strength. Your immune system's the same way. If you don't use it, you will lose it. And this is just one of the biggest scams in our lifetime that we are witnessing. We are living in a Twilight Zone episode right now.
I agree with you. I'll get off here. That was my question. Thank you.
All right, Kenny, thanks for the call, bro. Wow. I tell you, time flies when we're having fun. This has been a great show, guys. So thanks for being here with us. We got one more segment to have some closing thoughts in. And I think the way things are shaking out right now, Steve Elkins, you're going to be here again tomorrow to do what really happened. You're going to be in the hot seat. I'll try to ride along for part of the first hour, but I've got somewhere else I've got to be for hour number 2, and then we'll figure out what's going to be going on with Monday. Maybe we can get some Keith Rogers action in here and get the stuff covered. And Tuesday, Mike Rivero will be back in front of the microphone. He and Claire will be back from their trip to the Northeast, and I'm sure he will have some interesting stories about the whole TSA and germ.
Dave, did he say he was going to fly or he's going to drive? Did he say he's flying or driving to where he's going?
They're flying, and masks are absolutely mandatory. No liquids. It sounds like an absolute miserable time. But I hope that the little bit of the stuff that he's got to do there and the family visits are going to make up for all of that. It's going to be very interesting to hear what his experiences are, when he gets back from the trip, hopefully safe and sound and corona-free. I tell you, I wouldn't be getting on one of those germ tubes right now to do anything. Okay, last segment. We'll be right back after these short messages. RBN, what really happened? Yeah, now that would be an interesting sight to see one of these bonus-infused fat cat CEOs trying to do a minimum wage job and only subsisting on that minimum wage job. It's kind of disgusting how far the disparity between the CEOs and the general workers, pay has gotten. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's quite ridiculous. Okay, we got Johnny Delirious filling in for John Stadtmiller tonight on the Intel Report coming up next. Definitely a good thing to stay tuned for. Be a good segue into that show from what we've been talking about with the COVID or SARS summit. We've been debating on what we're going to call this whole thing. And my co-hosts here, Steve Stars and Steve Elkins, on Mondays and Tuesdays, Steve Stars and I do a show called Open Forum on 1360KHNC.com and also on 1360 AM in Northern Colorado, called Open Forum for a couple hours. And we've been talking about all these things, and you can catch us on the internet. And for those listeners that are in the Northern Colorado area, you can hear us there. And obviously, we all know that Steve Elkins is a regular on the Intel Report with John, and he also has his own show here on the network, 7 p.m. on Sundays, 8 p.m. Eastern time for you guys down in Florida, called Off the Beaten Path. So, guys, you got any closing thoughts for us here? We'll start with Steve Stars.
Well, I just want to appreciate all of the folks out there listening, and of course, Mike and John and everybody here at RBN. I encourage you to support them. Thanks, Dave. I was just going to say this, that years ago we exposed HIV as a fraud and nobody listened. Fauci was behind it in 1984. He's been doing this ever since. Fauci is not an expert. He's a politician. When you see him standing up next to the president, it's like Richard Nixon or Bill Clinton standing next to him. That's what he actually is. He's not an expert. And he needs to go. We need to realize this. But they didn't pay attention to us about what we said with HIV years ago. And now it's back. Big time. Just got notice that the governor has just submitted another order from his office about everybody wearing a mask, everywhere they go. But anyhow, the lockdown is here. This is a pandemic, ladies and gentlemen. It's not a threat of the virus. Isn't really the issue. It's a government takeover is what it is. I'll leave it at that. Leave some more time for Steve and let you guys finish up. Thanks again.
No, I'll agree with you 100% on that, Steve. It's time now. We've been silent too long. I know people on this network haven't, but we've been trying to inspire people to be very vocal on what's going on now. And now it's get to a point where hopefully it's becoming uncomfortable enough for most that say, you know what, and they start to think a little bit more and they start to research and they find out the truth. It's gone too far already. And it's time. The line has been drawn in the sand. And we need to now push back. Like I said, when I talked about bringing gridlock, I'm talking about bringing gridlock, shutting down people, industries, corporations, retail. If they request that they will not serve you if you do not wear the mask, you simply say, you know what? I'm not going to support you. I'm not going to buy a thing from you. You hit them in the pocketbook. You want to destroy them? Destroy them. That's what I say. I'm tired of it. I do believe they are trying to kill off the small businessman, but the small businessman is not fighting to save himself, so let's let him go then.
All right. Well, Well, I think we need to kind of rebel against this corporate takeover and all this stuff. We got a big mess on our hands for that. What really happened? We'll be back tomorrow. I'll probably be here a little bit with Steve Elkins tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. And we will catch you guys later. And remember, faith trumps fear. Don't be afraid of this crap. They want you to be afraid. That's how they control you. Stay safe. Keep your powder dry.